Welcome back once again. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for sticking with us through that break. We are back with the official English broadcast of the Overwatch Pacific Championship. My name is Matt Pixie Carroll. Joining me for the rest of the night here is going to be Matt Smite Ross. We are about to be coming at you with DeToNator.GOLD taking on the Flash Wolves.
And these are some terrifying teams, right? I mean, we saw DeToNator.GOLD take on Blank Esports, who, for a lot of people, are the favorites to win this entire thing. And it may have been a 3-0 with Blank Esports winning, but it was the closest 3-0 I've seen in a very, very long long time. So high hopes
throughout
for
this tournament so far.
Well, I mean, we've seen six matches so far, but in any case, definitely put on a good show.
Soldiers, scientists, adventurers, and others. Arisa evolves and pushes the boundaries of like the Overwatch universe. A lot of characters of Overwatch come from many different places, sometimes from designs, from stories, and just start from art.
We talked a lot about introducing another, what we like to call anchor tank.
Reinhardt is one of the only characters that can really sort of stand his ground and mark a spot and move with his team real slow. So we thought there was a great opportunity there for another option.
Arisa was amazing almost from the earliest prototypes.
While I was testing and iterating on these ideas, I was actually using one of Zarya's alternate skins internally to make it so it wasn't too confusing in Zarya's game, just so we could test it.
We see a Gothic Zarya adds to it Bastion's cannon that was just a combination of cobbled together parts, but it was instantly fun. And that's how we knew we were onto a good hero.
All right, well, that was DeToNator for you, and I think some interesting sentiments expressed. They're considered coming into this the sort of top team out of Japan, and yeah, like you said before, had a very, very close series.
I think my favorite part is the fisherman thing, about how he's
right?
trying to apply his fisherman experience to Overwatch. So does that mean he's playing a lot of Roadhog? I guess. I think they made the exact same joke last night, but
yeah. But I mean, hey, cool. Still, I mean, it still makes sense because especially if he's using like the Mako skin, or is that cannibalism? Because he like is a shark, but he's fishing.
I mean, he's got it.
Any case, here's the Flash Wolves.
Hello， 大家好。每个选手的能力都非常非常的好。目前我还没有遇到过劲敌。大局观的掌控比较好嘛，别人做不到的事情，我可以把它做得更好。所以现在最大的问题就是我们沟通方面，团队默契还是需要一段时间去做磨合。差了那么一点点的问题，如果改善，一定会变得很好。我会用我的经验帮助队伍获胜。未来的我们一定会变得很强，要好好的把握，全力以赴。这次的期许就是以全胜为目标，我有信心闪亮的拿第一。既然要打，就是要拿冠军。应该说，我只想赢，没有第二名，就是一定要拿冠军。毋庸置疑是联赛冠军。
Well, there you have it then. That's the Flash Wolves, and all they do is win, apparently.
It's another team that's just here to win the whole thing.
Just the whole thing.
That's all they're here for. And
that's the plan. I mean, if you don't lose, then you just win.
Well, I mean, they're definitely off to a great start.
Oh, yeah.
For their
so
plan,
far,
right?
they've won.
Yeah, I mean, they say we're here for a perfect season. They've already won 3 games, or three matches.
Won one,
first
yeah,
best
you've
of
won
5,
one
3-0.
yeah.
Perfect way to start
Yeah,
the
you've
season.
only got like 12 more weeks to go. It's kind of an interesting thing to express though, like when you're right at the start of an event and you're like, yeah, let's just win the whole thing, let's go for a perfect season. Like, I feel like if you're a team that comes in with like a history of having perfect seasons, then that's a thing, or like getting close, that's the thing to say. But when it's like, yeah, no, we've never seen any of these other teams before, we're aiming for a perfect season, like, all right, Flash Wolves not pulling any punches here with the BM.
Well, I mean, they're still very confident. But
for sure.
Most of them are saying, I can out damage, I can out support, I can out tank anyone else on any other team. We have better control of the map in every single round. And having that kind of sentiment going into every single game, you've got to back it up, obviously. You can't go in there saying all these things and then not be better than your opponent. So far, they've done that.
They have.
They're definitely going to be tested today. DeToNator are a very tough team.
Oh, yeah.
We've got to see if they actually can have better control of the map, out damage the DPS to actually come out on top, because DeToNator are definitely going to run them for a tough time.
Oh, yeah. Flash Wolves, however, very well-established organization, and there was actually something we were kind of talking about on the side yesterday that we didn't really touch on much here, but because this is such a long-form tournament, And I did mention it a little bit. These teams are really going to get put through their paces in a much more all-encompassing way, and that's going to include the support staff and infrastructure of these teams. This isn't something we normally talk about, but when you're a squad like Flash Wolves, who, like I just said, have a lot of that infrastructure behind them, much like AHQ do, you can kind of have a bit of confidence about, going for that perfect season. That doesn't necessarily mean that the other teams are going to crumble with their support structure or anything like that, but it means that you're not going to be put through your paces in the exact same kind of way because you have a well-established thing behind you. It's not a trial by fire for these other organizations that are sort of more recently built up to that point.
And it's also something that's definitely going to come into play in this very first map. We talk about DeToNator.GOLD. Going back to yesterday when they played against Blank, if you were just watching portions of those games, you would think DeToNator's DPS are walking all over Blank, particularly Anakin on that Pharah was demolishing Blank, demolishing the DPS specifically, just doing a better job. But hey, what happened? Blank came out with a 3-0 against them. It was tight, yes, but they still ended up winning, and a lot of that did come down to Blank's macro play. So tying that back to DeToNator and then their support staff as well, they can play their DPS roles better, be better than their opponents on the enemy team in those specific roles, but if they're not playing the map properly, not playing the strategies properly, then that is where they fell against Blank, and it may be where they fall against Flash Wolves.
Yeah, and you just mentioned as well, that is an area where Flash Wolves can also feel they have an element of confidence in, and certainly picking up the win against AHQ at the top of the day yesterday kind of speaks to that. Flash Wolves, they are also coming into this as a team with a lot of strengths that can absolutely be leveraged. The other thing I suppose I want to touch on with regards to this series that we're about to see is we're talking a lot about where these teams maybe stack up against one another. And this first set of the round robin is where we're going to see that. And then it'll kind of grow on from there in the other round robins. And by the end of today, I feel like we'll have a pretty solid idea of who sits where. And I think the question on a lot of people's minds is, where do Blank sit in this? Where do Flash Wolves sit in this? Because a lot of people feel a lot of buzz about those two teams. With the tight win against DeToNator yesterday, Blank have established themselves, but if they can, what I'm trying to say here, if DeToNator get a great win against Flash Wolves today, Blank can feel confident. But in any case, let's take a look at DeToNator here up on our screens. Delave or Delave on offense, along with Anakin. You mentioned their superstar Pharah player Samurai D and Sai Hate taking up the tank flex and tank support roles respectively. Yoshiharu, their second tank flex, and Dotalov, dedicated support player.
Yoshimaru is the fisherman. He was the one talking about it.
Yeah.
He's applying his fisherman experience to esports and Overwatch specifically. So look for him fishing for those hooks. I mean, he is a tank and flex player, so the one most likely to be playing that Roadhog. But like we mentioned just before, the person to watch out for is going to be Anakin. He had such a great performance against Blank Esports last night that I would not be surprised if he was the focus of a lot of his opponents tonight. Because honestly, Flash Wolves, they've got to start taking that guy down, or at least find a way around that Pharah. Maybe pick maps where Pharah is not a great target. I mean, with the system, the home and away system, I believe DeToNator are home, so they will pick maps 1, 3, and 5. But Flash Wolves and 2 and 4, they'll be picking those maps if they can get to game 4, of course. Because so far, we've only had 3-0s.
And also on your screens now, Flash Wolves, Zonda, and the best name in the league so far, Bacon Jack, as their two offense players, Jongi and Kemomo, their two tanks, and Sinkler Realmet, their two supports, which is a much more static lineup. This is the interesting thing. We haven't spoken much about this, but I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to affect over the long form of this whole tournament, how these teams are able to adapt. Because the ones that have more flex players, you'd feel like naturally they can be a little bit more adaptable, whereas the ones that have more hard and fast roles, you would think that they maybe can't be quite so adaptable. That's going to be put to the test, and you almost wonder if the ones with a lot of flex players are going to run into the opposite issue where they may be trying to be, jack of all trades, master of none.
But to touch on that,
the
full version of that saying there, jack of all trades, master of none.
But better than a master of one.
Exactly right. So it can go either way, where if you are able to play these multiple roles, that's where your advantage does come in. So again, we're just going to see the advantages of both of those types of play.
Yeah, and we've spoken quite a bit about, I guess, some of the differences between this being a very long tournament compared to a lot of others, not just in Overwatch, but actually in general. Very few tournaments are truly this long and this intensive. I mean, it's not just that it is, 11 weeks of a regular season, or I think it's 10 weeks of a regular season. It's that it's done in a 4-round robin format. Like, this isn't 10 weeks, 10 teams. This is only 8 teams, and that's a lot of games against one another. It's not a couple of games a night. Like, this is, every single week is 3 whole game nights of constant games. It's a really, really intensive thing in that kind of micro sense. Each week is a lot of games for each team, and a lot of studying you also have to do about the other teams, and then you have to do that again and again and again and again and again and again, back to back. So we're also going to see elements of how these teams can stack up psychologically and how the fortitude is there, and that's actually quite an exciting thing to be put to the test.
Well, I mean, we've seen a pretty good strategy from the team so far. When you've got a lot of games that you're facing every single week, just win them 3-0, so you play less games, and suddenly you're doing less work than the other teams. Unfortunately, everyone's done 3-0 so far, although this match I'm predicting will actually go to Game 5. And I'm saying it now.
I'm not quite going to say Game 5, but I do think this could well be the first one that doesn't go to, that isn't just a 3-0, rather. And I guess I was touching on it earlier, and I'll go back to it now. This idea of, we're curious to see how these teams stack up against one another, because it's going to give us an idea of how the teams like Blank and DeToNator and Flash Wolves, and I would say to an extent Hong Kong Attitude, when we see them after this, really stack up, because at the very least so far tonight, we've seen Blank pick up their second win so far. We're only halfway through the night, so we don't know who else is going to finish this off 2-0 and who's going to be 0-2 or 1-1 or what have you, but this one is going to be quite telling because DeToNator are the team that Blank beat. And a tight match says anyone could win. Because, like you said, that 3-0 yesterday really didn't tell the whole story of that series. But an absolutely smashing victory says there are 2 teams at the top, Blank and DeToNator, and then everyone else.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? The most important thing to have at the end of the round robin stage is those top 3 teams. And that's what we're going to be able to have a good image of at the end of tonight. The teams that get off to a good start, I mean, obviously Blank with their 2-0 already. Flash Wolves, they're looking primed to get that same result. If they do take out tonight, I mean, like I said, it's probably going to be a hard-fought win against DeToNator. But DeToNator, even if they do win, it proves that they took it very close to the team, one of the teams who might be at the very top. And also, the fact is, if they win tonight, they're taking another series out against a team who is possibly one of the other favorites coming in tonight.
Yeah, well, you also touched on that home team advantage before, so we've just seen what our map is going to be. Going to have Lijiang Tower coming up first. That is DeToNation.GOLD's pick, and I would say is emerging as a safety pick. Control tends to be that naturally because it's a mini best of 5 in and of itself and is quite safe, if you will. There isn't a drastic difference in how you play on offense versus defense, so you can scope a team out without accidentally coming up against a really, really strong offense that's like way better than you could have ever anticipated. So it makes sense, but it's interesting that they're all favoring Lijiang. I don't think we've seen any Nepal. We've seen a bit of Oasis, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was the first map in the Blank and DeToNator series. And, well, DeToNator, they didn't manage to take it out, but it did go to Game 5. And it was an incredibly close one, and it came a lot off the back of Anakin. Again, we're bringing him up once more, superstar Pharah player, and Pharah is a hero that you see very, very often on Lijiang Tower, particularly on Gardens, but sometimes sneaks into Night Market, and very rarely, but sometimes does get into Control Center as well. So definitely look out for Anakin on that. And there's a few ways to deal with a Pharah of that caliber, but we'll probably talk about that once we actually get into the game, whether Anakin actually does pick it, but I do expect to see it on Gardens, and almost definitely on Night Market as well.
And of course, whether or not Flash Wolves are able to handle counter it. And actually, that's something we touched on a little earlier as well, was we expect them with that home side advantage to pick maps that maybe can favor that Pharah to unlock Anakin. Not to say he can only play Pharah, he did play other DPS very competently as well, but yeah, that Pharah is sort of the big thing looming over Flash Wolves' heads right now, and they're going to have to really be thinking right now about how they're going to deal with that as they come on into this. And for those of you who did see Anakin's Pharah yesterday, Pretty impressive stuff. Tell us what you think about it, and tell us whether you think Flash Wolves, based on their performance against AHQ, have what it takes to take Anakin out of the skies. Hit us up on our social media. _ES on Twitter. You know where we are on Twitch. If you're already watching this, let us know your thoughts using the hashtag OPC. So, Lijiang Tower. We've talked a bit about the general safety of this. There's something else I kind of want to touch on, though, before we come into this, and that is, again, referring back to the series DeToNator played against Blank yesterday. Blank was very consistently winning the opening skirmishes, with one exception, that was Control Center, but on every other one they were winning that first skirmish. Even when the matches were a little bit tighter, they were resoundingly winning that. What needs to be fixed up here by DeToNator to stop that from happening now against Flash Wolves?
Well, the thing is, they're going up against Bacon Jack, and Bacon Jack is a fantastic Tracer player, and a lot of the fights that Blank won against DeToNator in the initial skirmishes was off the Tracers. And you're going into Bacon Jack, he's going to try and do the same thing. You definitely need to look out for your healers, and maybe, depending on what you're actually going to be running, maybe you've got a soldier in the backline, look out for him, make sure he's going to be safe. That's the key thing. Keep track of Tracer, keep track of Bacon Jack.
And here we go. Let's see if they can keep track. I'm going to be kicking it off on Control Room. So the least Pharah-y of them all, as you sort of mentioned. And yes, there's still going to be a few questions about that Pharah for the time being, because it also doesn't look like he has it just out of the gate there.
And just glancing as well, down at the team comps, no Tracer either.
No Tracer,
so
you're right.
Everything I said, just forget about it for the first map. But it looked like DeToNator were moving into this with an idea that there would be a Tracer. They had a McCree, and one of the best anti-flanking heroes. You pair that up with a Roadhog, which is something that they did as well. Any kind of dive that comes up against them, they will be able to shut it down. But it looks like that's not what is being run by the Flash Wolves. They're running a similar composition as well, a lot of big tanks. I believe there was a Reinhardt in there as well, so it doesn't look like they're going too heavy into the dive. They're going to be sitting back, protecting everyone. It's something that you do see on Control Center sometimes. I believe yesterday it was Sun Sister that ran this composition. Didn't go too well for them. But then again, I think that's more praise towards Machi Esports when they actually beat Sun Sister.
And we definitely did praise Machi Esports at the time, where it was due. I suppose the thing that can be said, though, about that comp, as much as we've only barely seen it, because we were talking before about how Control is often used to sound out the enemy team, this is a comp that does that as well. Much better than a dive comp, because a dive comp is about your proactivity. You don't wait and see, you go. You want to be, like I said, the proactive team. You want to be the proactive party. You want to be the one forcing the issue. You want to be the one creating whatever is going to happen in that game. And if you are picking Control to sound out your competition, that's not what you want to do. You want to wait for them to make the play. You want to figure them out first. You want to even lose a fight or two before you go in and engage. And I guess a conjectural piece of evidence I can bring up in support of that, actually, earlier today, again, to actually go back to Blank in their series against Machi on Volskaya, first time around, the defense from Machi, very patient, very slow, and the offense from Blank, not so much. They really went right into it. They got totally caught out. They really struggled. But then when it was on time bank, they had totally figured it out, right? And giving yourself as much space to figure out what the enemy team is doing is a very important thing.
At the same time, though, that's a very dangerous line to play on Control.
Oh, yeah.
You lose that first skirmish, suddenly, not only has the enemy team captured the points, started racking up the percentage towards their victory, but also they're now ahead in ult charge, which means they're going to be on the front foot in the driver's seat with that ultimate economy from the get-go. And especially when you're not running something like a Tracer on either side, you don't have one of those heroes who has a very fast ultimate charge, so you're not going to be able to sneak in a quick pulse bomb, turn it into a 6v5 and win through that instead of your ultimate economy. So giving up the first fight, while obviously not entirely giving it up, but sounding out your opponent, it's something that can work in your favor, but at the same time, it's a very dangerous line to play. You can't just let that happen, because once a team is entrenched in that point, it's sometimes very, very hard to get them off it.
But then, of course, that is why you do this on Control. Because, of course, even if you do drop that whole first point, you get completely shut out of it. It's, like I said, that mini best of 5, and you can just come back in the next one. So you're actually, you're totally right. It's that high risk, high reward. But this is the arena for teams to do that. This is also conjecture as well. They could not be picking Lijiang for the reasons I've been stating. They could totally have something else in mind. But this is a really valid thing for teams to do, especially in the earlier days of this tournament. Favor control a little bit more, favor that kind of safer space to sound out teams. You know, we haven't seen anything yet like Eichenwald. We haven't seen really all that much. Actually, no, you're right. We saw one. But we haven't seen a lot. We haven't seen a whole lot of payload. We've seen a little bit of variety. We've seen a surprising amount of assault, but we're seeing predominantly control and assault to sound out teams. And often on the second pick is where we're starting to see a bit of hybrid, a bit of payload. And I think it's for exactly those reasons. It's because you don't want to go into those other situations until you know your enemy just a little bit more. Later on in the tournament, I can absolutely see teams just gunning straight for whatever is their most comfortable map whenever they have that home advantage, or indeed whenever it is their turn to pick the map. Because at that point, all the teams are going to know each other. They don't need to sound anything out.
Something I kind of want to see when we get back into the game is it Yoshimaru playing the Roadhog? Because he's the fisherman, right? He's definitely going to be looking for the hooks, but
Fishing for the hooks.
yeah, fishing for the hooks, but also fishing for the strategies, like you're saying, like sounding out your opponent, fishing for what your solution is going to be. Now, I think they definitely made the right call in how to go into it with their opening composition, using the anti-dive composition, because statistically, that's what we've seen Flash Wolves and most of the teams in this tournament actually do, is they run in with a lot of dive, or at the very least, you kind of expect a Tracer or a Genji somewhere on those control maps, and well, hey, that's what they're doing. But
yeah,
here we go. It's going to be a different map on
Yep,
Lijiang
out of the
Towers.
pause, looks like they have had to reload the map altogether, but in any case, out of the gates now, and yeah, straight away, actually, we're seeing Anakin right into the skies on that Pharah, and opening skirmish, actually losing Dotolov. Not ideal for them. Sides are actually the wrong way around for the time being, but there, wow, Zondere is actually the one to rope-a-dope and Anakin there, taking him out of the skies now, establishing himself on the point. Flash Wolves looking a little bit ahead in this one to start with. They have lost Bacon Jack. Going to try and get these off the side here, forcing the Diva out of this one. This should well be Flash Wolves nicely set up on the point.
Yeah, and Zonder actually getting close to that barrage. That's going to be the first ultimate available, one of the most important things in control points. If you can just get a lot of value off of that, off the first fight, force them back even further. Big thing to notice is it's a very similar playstyle. Instead of a Mercy, it's the Ana for detonation. Anakin in the skies alone, trying to compete against the pharmacy combo for Flash Wolves. Here it goes though, there is a nano boost thrown out.
Yeah, straight into it. Oh, Realman with the double boot. That's a big one to kick it off. But Flash Wolves losing a few more members there means it's starting to get turned around. There's still a few people left for Flash Wolves. They might be able to get something to happen, but no, losing Samurai D should spell disaster for that one. Got a decent start to it though.
Yeah, I mean, Flash Wolves, they definitely need to move in, try and sound out their opponents. Don't use any of their own ultimates as long as possible, right? The point's still ticking forwards. They can shut down their opponents, especially after a nano boost. Suddenly, they're looking primed to actually just win this 99-0. They're sitting there with the ultimate advantage. They're not going to have the Mercy res though because they're not running one.
Ooh,
oh, sorry,
yeah.
they do. They have that ready to go.
Yeah, there we go. Flash Wolves with that Mercy res and with the defense as well. So they're looking pretty set here. And a couple people already getting picked off from detonation. Diva out of the mech is one of them. So that is not a great way to start. And Samurai D not really finding anything with the ultimate either. Maybe a little bit preemptive. They did get Sinclair, which would have been the Mercy res, but without the follow-up, picking that Mercy doesn't really matter.
Yeah, a few ultimates used by Flash Wolves, but it's stabilizing. That's exactly what you want to be doing on control points, stabilizing. You're still sitting there with the Mercy ultimate. Luckily, Sinclair wasn't forced to use that, being dead and all. But at the same time, now they've got that in what is going to be the final fight for detonation to try and take the point finally.
They've just got to go straight in.
They've got to go straight in and get Sinclair.
Yeah, and they've just switched off a lot of things. They're going to have very few ultimates here. Samurai D is going to be the one to take the nano boost, trying to get in, forcing the Flash Wolves off. But Flash Wolves, they look like they want to just let them in and then re-engage the fight on their terms, and they are going to do just that as Samurai D goes down to a false bomb. They do pick off Realman onto the side, but Zonda taking out the DPS, and Yoshiharu really getting forced out of this one by his counterpart is going to spell disaster for the push for now. The res did go out, and here's going to be the re-engage from Flash Wolves now as Zonda picking up a couple of nice ones off to the side, getting the good damage down. Yoshiharu on the point, does zone, but not really any picks, and Flash Wolves, they should still be able to pick this one out.
I mean,
get a few more.
The res was used at the start of the fight, so they're running on fumes here, but at the same time,
yeah, they stepped off the point, and that was that.
It gave them enough gas in the tank to continue and just hold the point for long enough. When you've got 6 members because of that res, it's suddenly almost double the amount of people that you've got to kill when you're detonation or detonator, and You just can't keep up with that amount of people. Another thing is that a lot of resources that they threw into that final fight, maybe because of panic, but Nano Boost was completely wasted. Winston did not find anything, and then at the end, when Nano Boost actually ran out, he had a pulse bomb thrown on his face and just died straight away. So
that was that. Yeah, well, I have to say though, I was very impressed by Flash Wolves' positioning in that last one. Like I said, they sort of moved off and then re-engaged on their terms. That's something that we're seeing actually out of a lot of the teams in this tournament is a like of playing that way. It's something that Matchy did constantly to great effect. I want to see if they can pull off the same here again if they pick up that opening skirmish, keep taking fights on their terms.
Heavy dive by DeToNator here, the Tracer and the Genji. It's going to be hard for Flash Wolves to shut down, especially with Zonda down. He's the biggest key to shutting down the dive.
Yeah, despite the sleep on Samurai D, he is going to be picked off though, so they've evened up the score just for the time being and already set up on the point as Flash Wolves. So actually they're getting forced just a little bit back now as DeToNator start kind of swinging back. No picks just yet, and Delay Blow off to the side means he can only harass so much. It's really give and take, with just a few inches being what is given and what is taken. But Flash Wolves now the ones a little bit more in command, looking to force DeToNator off. DeToNator coming back in with the re-engage now.
Flash Wolves could just jump straight onto the point. There's very little that Jongi can actually do on the Reinhardt against these diving heroes. Tracer and Genji can just jump circles around them.
Yeah, there they go in though. Namekin with the Dragon Blade, I nearly said Nano Blade, but now they're actually going to commit a Nano Boost onto Momo here for Flash Wolves, and they're actually coming out on top of this. For a moment, it looked like they were in a bit of a back-footed situation because Zonda got picked out early and Namekin did the ult, but they didn't find enough. And again, Flash Wolves re-engaged on their turn.
The thing is, their composition revolves around diving in, getting a kill, and getting out. The problem is half the team on Flash Wolves are tanks, and that's a lot of HP to actually burn through. But now we're seeing Flash Wolves take a blank strategy, moving towards the store, very, very tight choke point to get through, especially with 3 tanks, and now they're coming up to big ultimates. That Graviton, the Earth Shatter is going to keep DeToNator completely locked out the door. They have to dive through it.
Yeah, and the dive through it doesn't help because he gets picked off as the rest of his team is caught in the Graviton. Namekin does get past, but he is a man alone on the wrong side of that fight with no team to kind of support him there. Oh, bit of an exciting run through it so far. Here we go. Still with the hold.
I mean, they did not commit very much to that and still held it very, very cleanly. They've still got Earth Shatter to go. They've got Sound Barrier in case things go a little bit hairy. And then, of course, if DeToNator do manage to dive a little bit past them, there's going to be the self-destruct as well. Yeah, Flash Wolves are primed to just hold this forever.
Yeah, they committed the Sound Barrier that time around to try and get the breakthrough, but again, it just didn't work, and now the ultimates here from Flash Wolves were up, so they're having a great time just using as little as necessary to keep DeToNator stuck on the wrong side of this point. DeToNator finally breaking through now, though, as they get a couple of key kills onto Flash Wolves. Let's see if they can get the rest of these kills.
The key thing is, though, because of how forward... Oh, that was almost a triple kill. But Flash Wolves are so far forward that when they actually had those deaths, they are going to get back to the point in time. Yes, DeToNator are able to cap the point, but they're not going to get too much time on it. Flash Wolves can get into position to go. In fact, they've picked off one of the DPS already.
Flash Wolves ready to get the re-engage here. They do have the Graviton. Yeah, the Graviton is going to be a key one for them. They're looking to get around the side with this one. And there's only a Genji there. Not really what you want to stop up a Zarya. There we go. He catches the back end of the team. They throw a Diva self-destruct straight into it. Samurai does turn the shield around to block it, but the rest of the team was in such disarray from it that they all get dropped down. And Flash Wolves back on top on this one will get the regrab in, and it's 65%. DeToNator only have time for 1 or 2 more good fights.
And Flash Wolves still have a Deadeye to work with. They can have Zonda sitting a little bit further back to shut down any dive. Anyone that goes past this choke point here will be walking straight into Deadeye. The 75%, that's basically 1 fight to go for DeToNator, maybe 2 if they're very, very lucky. If they can get a magical Earth Shatter, that should be enough. That'll set Anakin up to get the Dragon Blade. He's 90% of his ult. It's a very uncomfortable position for DeToNator.
They're trying to get back into it. That's a good Earth Shatter to kick it off. They're able to get 2 out of the picture already, but they have a long walk to get onto the point here, and Flash Wolves can just kind of bleed them for every inch of this territory. Zonda doing exactly that, going to get D.Va out of the neck now to try and cut off the follow-up. Oh, nice flashbang headshot. That actually could be it. I mean, DeToNator, they have got the grab in, but they haven't got any reinforcements coming, and the rest of Flash Wolves are now going to pile on in behind them, already in position to get the regrab as Momo starts just running for this point. Oh, no. Dead to the own pulse bomb for Delay. maybe too busy emoting. That's one Reinhardt waving goodbye. Flash Wolves now well set to get the regrab, as I believe they have a numerical advantage here. Indeed they do. And Yoshiharu really alone on this point as the Genji is busy flanking and the team was way behind him.
And D.Va's out of the mech now. That is prime time for Deadeye. There it goes. It's gone off. It's just thrown DeToNator away from the point. They've got to come in and try and trickle onto the point, but Flash Wolves, they're entrenched in the middle here. They still have ults to work with. That self-destruct should zone them completely off. DeToNator, it's really just struggle street for them now as they're trying to get this point.
Yeah, the regrab was very, very key there for Flash Wolves, and with Bacon Jack throwing out the self-destruct to get a few back into the mech. Forced out, but there's not really any follow-up there, and is going to be completely fine as the rest of his team willing to clean up Yoshiharu. And the lone Lucio caught out there at Dotolov. He's got a little bit of reinforcement coming from the Reinhardt, but no such luck. And now Flash Wolves set up 2-0.
Flash Wolves had a great composition to shut down any dive, and we talked about how DeToNator do like to play that quite a lot. They've got very strong diving heroes, but we haven't seen any of that Pharah yet. Anakin not on Pharah on the second map. We saw it earlier on Gardens, but maybe we want to start seeing it into Night Market, which will be the next map, because this diving wasn't working. Flash Wolves know that they can shut down a diving composition. Tracer and Genji just don't do enough damage to shut down 3 big tanks, and then even if they get close to it, then you've got Zonda on that McCree ready to flashbang them and take them out. And we saw it near the end. He took out like 3 people in a row.
Yeah, pretty good McCree player.
He's all right.
He's okay. I've seen better.
I'm better, but my teammates hold me back.
Yeah, exactly. I would be Grandmaster if it weren't for my terrible teammates, but instead I'm bronze. At any rate, out of the gates once again, and still no Pharah for Namakin.
Yeah, but this time it's DeToNator throwing the anti-dive composition out. 3 tanks, Roadhog, McCree, making sure no Tracers and Genjis are going to get into the backline. But it's not working out for them.
Yeah, not working at all. Namakin and Dodlov picked off at the start as Delay follows them to the grave. And Flash Wolves, they were very full dive, but the anti-dive wasn't good enough to counter it out somehow. So DeToNation again, having lost the opening skirmish, already 2-0 down. They're going to have to change things up here.
It feels like Flash Wolves are also just completely out-fragging them. Even in fights that don't involve a lot of ultimates, always the first fights, Flash Wolves coming out on top. And it means that they can take these fights past the first one, where they can actually save ultimates, save it into the further fight. We've seen quite often they get the point first off and then just save their ults until near the end. But never mind, they're going all in with it this time.
Straight out with it, Zonda. He does get 1 to kick it off, but actually not getting much more. Finally gets his second one, and it is the Reinhardt, but his team is kind of low. Oh no, they're getting Yoshiharu out of this one. They're going to be fine for now. Zonda, he's fine. He's going to be able to get back up. And actually, despite the low members of Flash Wolves, DeToNation just didn't really have the ground to swing back. They didn't have the positioning.
DeToNator throwing themselves off the edge, trying to deny Flash Wolves getting any ult charge, but it doesn't matter. Flash Wolves are sitting so far ahead in the ultimate race that it's going to be almost impossible for DeToNator to actually take the point. They've got Deadeye, sure, but there's a D.Va on the enemy team. There's also a Winston. Those 2 things are great at stopping your Deadeye. They're going to try and go in once more on the bridge.
Yeah, DeToNator do not have the ultimates, and Jongi bumps one off. Samurai D down and out, but the Count Saihate follows him to the grave, and they're just not in a good position for this one again. They're just going to take this one on the chin, feel happy that they forced out 2 ultimates, and maybe try again with a couple more in their own pocket.
So the 2 ultimates that they did force out, defensive ultimates, right? You've got double the HP on the Winston, and of course Sound Barrier. So DeToNator, they can go in with their offensive ults, but what have they really got to go with that? I mean, Whole Hog, there's no Graviton Surge to combo that up with. They don't have a Genji like this.
Yeah, like that indeed. Zonda already found Saihate off the start. They do throw out a nano boost onto the Whole Hog, but they don't get enough for it, only getting Realment, and they haven't picked the DPS. They're not getting the damage through to these tanks, and again, DeToNator are just getting completely steamrolled here by Flash Wolves.
And the thing is as well, the combos are a little bit janky, right? You're throwing a nano boost onto a Whole Hog. Usually that sounds like a great idea. Puts out a huge amount of damage, but Whole Hog kind of does that already. You really need something to lock them in place. The Earth Shatter didn't catch enough people. There's no Graviton to lock them all in. And honestly, just the fact that Flash Wolves could out-frag them in most of the fights, saving a lot of ultimates, means that there was really no contest for the point at all.
Yeah. Well, that was Lijiang over almost as quickly as it began, and just Flash Wolves commanding from start to finish. And I kind of want to touch on something you were saying there. I mean, DeToNator, it wasn't like they were just doing things wrong or something like that, but Flash Wolves were playing in such a mobile way that DeToNator weren't adapting to, that they were never really able to set up the plays they wanted. Like you said, if they had connected with a great Earth Shatter, they could have got a lot of mileage out of a whole hog, but they were never allowed to get into position, and Flash Wolves never put themselves in a position where they could be caught by something like that. They played mobile. They played in a kind of tactical retreat way. I touched on this yesterday. I called it Russian tactics yesterday because that's a bit of a
Let
history.
the dudes run in and kill them.
That's a bit of a history nerd thing for you, but it's basically the enemy team engages, you just kind of disappear and then re-engage on your terms. And I said yesterday that it was something Matchy were very good at doing it. And I mentioned it on the very first map there of Lijiang, but Flash Wolves seem to be able to tap into that same strategy, and they just don't even let the team catch you because they're just never there.
The positioning was always basically on point once they'd actually captured, well, the point. But every time they were sitting around the weak point of the engage from the enemy team. Every time DeToNator tried to come in, they'd have to be going through a tiny little doorway. We saw that on Control Center, and then on the last map on Night Market. They were constantly having to be funneled through these small doorways, through these small choke points, and it just wasn't possible when you've got things like Winston, who are going to cleave your entire team, the Genji, who's just going to sweep through them, especially once Dragonblade comes out. And by the time DeToNator were in position to actually get into a fight, the way they were going along the left on Night Market, they'd lost half their hit points already, and also their paths of engagement a little bit confusing on
Really?
Night Market.
Yeah,
Why are you going on the ledge when there's definitely going to be a Winston
and a Lucio as well? I mean, Lucio is just kind of a fact of life, but if you're going to do that, you're looking to get a couple of picks, or you're looking to get a really, really crazy flank. You're looking to catch them as they are set out of the point elsewhere. But with how far forward Flash Wolves were playing, DeToNator, whether they went to the right, down the middle, or to the left to go around that flank onto the point, they were going to be spotted in advance. You can't pick a cheeky flank to get the drop on your enemy, right? They already know where you're going to be. So you should basically figure out a better way to break through what is in front of you. You can't get around it. You're just going to have to go through it. And I feel like DeToNator, they could have actually just done that. We do know that they are a capable, competent team that can play differently to what they were playing here in terms of their picks and in terms of their strategy, but they just didn't employ that. They were kind of trying to do something that Flash Wolves were never going to let them do. So to kind of touch on what I was talking about earlier, where this is the time for teams to sound each other out. All right, they've done their sounding. They lost a series for it, or game for it, but they've done their sounding. Now DeToNator need to come back into it, having learned what Flash Wolves do.
That's a hard ask.
It is a hard ask.
Because that was not a close game by any means. And we'll probably touch on this a little bit later after the series, but Blank have got to be shaking in their boots a little bit. This is a team that really put it to them. Yes, it was 3-0, but very, very close games. And in fact, on that same map, it went to a 5th game. Flash Wolves just wiped the floor with DeToNator. And I mean, yeah, they might be sounding out Flash Wolves just a little bit, and there is definitely hope for them moving into the next map. Maybe they're a little bit more confident on it. DeToNator, though, were the home team, so they actually picked that map.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be Flash Wolves' choice. They're going to be moving into this next map with the side advantage, or the side that they're choosing to get the advantage that they believe they have, and of course the choice of map. And yesterday, out of all 4 matches, Machi Esports was the only team to actually win as the away team.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because if I'm not mistaken, Machi actually had the home advantage today in their series against Blank, which they then lost. So I don't know if that's really quite as telling as we were maybe anticipating it would be after that finish yesterday. And again, it's so early in the tournament that it's really hard to say whether there's going to be a theme of home advantage being massive. It isn't on paper a massive advantage anyway. It's just you get the first map pick. So yeah, it's just sort of a curiosity, a bit of an oddity of how things went. But Flash Wolves coming into this sort of as the other favorite, if you will. It's hard to say that there's particular favorites, but I mean, first of all, they've got the home crowd. That's definitely something to be said.
That is a big advantage.
But we also touched on the other things. They're an established organization. They're fairly established players as well, a fairly established team, etc., etc., etc. So you come in with a bit of gravitas about your name, and it's gravitas that they're living up to so far.
DeToNator, though, one of the top teams coming out of Japan. They've got the weight of their country shared with Sunsister as well. But so far, DeToNator have had a little bit better results. I mean, maybe not with match results, but if you actually go back and watch the games, then you can tell DeToNator have so far done better than Sunsister. So they might be feeling like they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders too. I mean,
Certainly.
Japan definitely getting behind them as well. So yeah, Taiwan are definitely going to be backing their home team of the Flash Wolves at the East Stadium right now, but DeToNator are doing it for the boys back home.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And like you said, a lot of weight on their shoulders. So far, it's, dare I say, been weight that they're struggling to carry. I mean, again, we're so early into the tournament that it's hard to make these big sweeping statements about these sorts of things. And, you know, first weekend, there's even just things like, you know, first day jitters, but it can extend over 2 days because it's the first weekend of an exceptionally long tournament. So there's a lot that we've seen, and it may mean a lot and it may mean very little. I know that's a very cop-outy thing to say.
Come on.
Well, but it is completely true. You know, this could well be a team that's just coming into this with a lot of pressure that they are kind of struggling with, and they need a bit of time to sort of get up to speed and just sort of, you know, adjust to how much weight is on their shoulders. Or this could be a team that is not as good as everyone has made them out to be. It's really hard to say which of those is the case at this very, very early juncture.
Right now, I've got to say, it just looks like Flash Wolves are the better team.
So far.
They have done just spectacularly in the series, played everything correctly. I mean, I'm struggling to see too many mistakes from what they've done. They were, at least on a macro level, right? I mean, mechanics-wise, you're always going to spot the occasional mistake, but at the same time, right, like, they were holding ultimates perfectly, they were getting aggressive when they needed to, they got their position correctly on these control maps, funneling them through the choke points. It's very hard to find the mistakes there.
Yeah, and well, we'll really start to see this time around if Flash Wolves are indeed just the better team. This is their pick, and it is going to be Hollywood. So, again, one of the other maps I've actually seen a little bit more of, and I touched on a little bit of why I think that is yesterday, and it's really just due to the nature of there being that first point. We're seeing very little straight payload. We're seeing control, we're seeing hybrid, we're seeing assault. So
Bacon Jack, he's sitting on that Reaper. Now,
Yeah,
I looked him up a little bit. This is his signature champion. This is really interesting on the offense here. They're getting right up in onto this point and basically telling DeToNator to come into them.
But Zonda already picked off. That's a little unfortunate for Flash Wolves. That's probably going to call the retreat. Yeah, there it goes as Jongi goes leaping backwards. Good use of DeToNator, just holding that high ground. Even when they lost Samurai D's shield, they didn't panic. They just laid out the damage very, very steadily to force Flash Wolves back.
It does. The Reaper does actually move into DeToNator's team comp pretty well, if he can get into position for it, right?
It's a big if.
Yeah, it's a big if, right? He's got to get through the damage of Anakin, a pretty big superstar player that we've been talking about a lot on DeToNator. But if Zonda and Jongi get into that backline, then we can actually see Bacon Jack getting in there and doing his job, busting down those tanks.
Speaking of Anakin, he's got a lot of ultimate charge already just off that first one. Zonda already going to try and go in as DeToNator are forced off that high ground a little bit. Discord Orb on the Roadhog spells death for him, but they've traded it back to a tank of their own. DeToNator getting low though as Saihate gets dropped down. They're very lean.
There it goes, Anakin.
Flash Wolves with plenty of health. Yeah, Anakin is going to have to get a lot of mileage out of this. Indeed, that is a lot of kills for the man. And Samurai D picking up one in there for himself as well. Flash Wolves are trying to keep it alive on this point, but Realman is just going to have to go into full retreat. Good hold by DeToNator, even as it started to look a little dicey.
Flash Wolves, they've got a lot of dive, they've got to get Bacon Jack into position, but at the same time, DeToNator are sitting up on that roof, making sure that they're safe in the cafe. Basically, all of them are in there. So if anyone goes into a dive, they better believe they're getting a kill and getting out alive, because Delav is there to hook them up. That just shuts down quite a lot of dive already. So Flash Wolves, they're going for the option of actually walking onto the point. They've already got the first tick already.
Yeah, they're just going to force DeToNator off this high ground, and force off indeed as here they go right into the jaws of the Reaper if they're not careful. Zonda going to open up as well, and they're actually forcing them a long way back. Anakin does trade it back, and now Bacon Jack is sitting on the point, holding onto their ultimate if he needs it. They're trying to get the kills through as they get Anakin as well. The whole Hog starting to do a lot of zoning work though for delay, forcing a lot of this team back, and with Bacon Jack down, they don't really have that death blossom they were potentially banking on. They get a few more now. Coming back, Flash Wolves, but there's a self-destruct again on the side of DeToNator. So really back and forth still. And with this point so ticked up, Flash Wolves, they can't afford to lose too many members here.
It's gone.
They're finally on the point.
Oh,
yeah, a little
it's
bit
not
more
gone.
set up as they route Anakin way out of this one. And finally, they get the few extra kills to tip the balance.
But they paid a lot to get into there, right? They don't have an ultimate advantage. There will be no snowball going into the streets phase. We actually saw Bacon Jack swap onto the Roadhog instead of Reaper. Maybe even in preparation for the streets grenade space. They have some upwards mobility with the ability, with Winston, D.Va, even Genji to get up onto that roof. They can contest it, and with how handily they won that fight to actually capture the point, they're going to get free distance on the payload. They're going to get control of the rooftops. They're in a great position.
Look at the chair. Look at the chair on the front of the payload.
Is there a chair on the payload?
The chair stuck on the front of the I've never seen
I thought that was weird, but hey, look at
let's
this.
talk about what's in hand. That's a great deflect actually out of Zonda. Oh, but it's not quite enough. It doesn't last as long as that tag visor. And Anakin, despite being low, gets a couple of kills for his troubles. The chair is gone from the payload.
No, it's still
as
there.
is Flash. Oh, it's still there? Oh, yes. Chair in the beat. Oh, no, I think it got punched out. It was there for a moment, but in any case, the chair gone, Flash Wolves gone, DeToNator finding their feet for a defense.
I thought someone had attached like war spikes onto the payload. I thought it looked a little bit different. I thought someone had made this payload into a war machine, but in any case, that was a lot of ultimates used for DeToNator. Flash Wolves coming up on a combo of their own. They just need that nano boost, and Zonda can go big. But there's a nano boost coming up from DeToNator.
Yeah, going really deep onto this one, sitting on the Winston, kind of that...
Getting nothing.
Yeah, nothing at all, aside from a lot of zoning, but that's not really enough, especially when you lose Dotlov and Delayed now as well. Flash Wolves are going to take that opportunity to open up with the Dragon Blade, already getting Anakin for his troubles. Now searching for something else. He's looking to get a Winston. He does get a Winston. Animal cruelty as Zonda keeps it moving.
And Flash Wolves once again showing they're only committing what they need to capture these fights, move the payload. They just used the Nanoblade combo. Jongi actually also went pretty big on that Winston, but he's coming up close to his own Primal Rage, so they still have a lot of ults in the bank, while DeToNator, they're all coming up to theirs, but it's all at the same time. So if they can survive long enough to get these ults...
Anti-hook to stop the hook onto Zonda, but he just opens up straight away. He's going to take out Bacon Jack. He's caught the Genji in jail, and he's going to get executed there as well. Death row that was. As DeToNator, they just kind of came out swinging, got a couple of quick kills, and they're going to get themselves an opportunity to defend one more time before this second point.
Yeah, I mean, they committed the Primal Rage to that as well. It's not the most important of resources, but at the same time, they're swapping anyway. Jongi is now onto that Reinhardt. They're looking for just a straight get up, sit on top of the payload, and get it moving kind of composition. Unfortunately, they actually have to get into position for that, and DeToNator are going to make that the toughest job they possibly can.
Ooh, Anakin getting hooked, but he's going to be able to get out safely as Samurai D is looking for the angle to go for this dive. They've already lost Delayed though, and Dodlov. Now Yoshiharu forced out of the mech. Flash Wolves just kind of pulled it out of the hat there. Bacon Jack with that whole hog getting a lot of mileage, and it looks like they'll get this payload rolling unless DeToNator come out with something absolutely crazy. Samurai D is going to try and buy time, but
Monkey's pretty crazy. I mean,
Monkey.
he's pretty furious as well, that Primal Rage. The thing about using that is it bought them about a few seconds on the actual payload, but you throw out Primal Rage, you buy a little bit of time, but you also give away 1,000 hit points of ult charge to the enemy team.
And because he died anyway, and Delayed died on the way to the payload, now DeToNator are massively scattered. This is the trickle we talk about, and this is what we talk about teams desperately needing to avoid. I haven't actually seen a team trickle this badly for a long time. Yeah, finally they're going to kill the D.Va, but that's just going to buy Flash Wolves a ton of distance, and like you said as well, a ton of charge.
Quite often though, the payload is going to move at this point pretty much guaranteed anyway, so if there's any kind of silver lining for DeToNator, it's going to be that. But at the same time, they've banked up not very many ultimates compared to what Flash Wolves have, especially once Zonda hits that tactical visor. That combo with Nano Boost alone is pretty much enough, especially once they get Yoshimaru out of the mech.
I was about to say Reinhardt chicken, but they just kind of forced the issue there with the D.Va ult. Momo didn't get much, but they've got Samurai D out of this one. There has been a trade back, but there should be enough that they can get out of here. Flash Wolves, if they keep this one moving, looking to get right on top of this one. DeToNator, though, they're going to get the respawns. Yeah, they're opening it up now at long last. They've already lost Anakin here. DeToNator, they're starting to just fall to pieces on this point. Yoshiharu going to throw out his ultimate to try and buy them some time, buy them some space. Samurai D going down, though, means no shield for them. The grenades are coming straight on through, and there's very little healing for DeToNator. Flash Wolves, it's a slow slog, but they're getting it through. It's a war of attrition that they are winning.
The slow slog, though, definitely favors DeToNator because they can just come back in onto the point. They're doing it, actually. I mean, they've got the respawns every single kill they get, and they've got to, if you include the mech, it's going to be enough for them to stabilize.
Yeah, that wasn't a resounding enough win for Flash Wolves, even though it got very close. I'll be honest, this has been a bit of a common theme for DeToNator in that they've just barely held on, but it is proving to be enough right now. Less than 15 left for Flash Wolves.
Exactly, it's so important if they can actually get it into overtime. That's going to be enough of a win there. Flash Wolves have a single fight to go to get it all the way to the end. They have to actually jump on the payload right now, but they also need that Earth Shatter. It needs to connect.
They're on it, and Anakin trying to force Zonda off the high ground. He's going to go around
great.
for another pass. Yeah, Zonda's just running him in circles, but it's forcing Zonda away from the fight. Bacon Jack, though, he gets so many with the whole hog. That is a great one for them. Oh, nice hook there to stop up Anakin and DeToNator. Now they're starting to fall apart. Well, I say fall apart. It's actually just Flash Wolves picking them apart as they keep everything moving on this payload. A nice nano boost onto the right heart to secure it. A charge in for Bacon Jet.
Oh boy!
Whoa, yeah, that's a big Earth Shatter actually. Maybe they're going to keep it going. They do still have the respawns, but there's not really many people from DeToNator, and they're getting the trickle respawns now. It's only a matter of time, surely, for Flash Wolves. All they got to do is keep a few more alive, and that self-destruct is going to be all she wrote for it as it gets right on into the end, just about. There it goes. Oh, no, 0.4 of a meter. There we go.
There we go. It
Nearly
there in
got
the end.
caster cursed to the ends of the earth there, but whew.
So a lot to say about that, but I can say it all in one sentence. Flash Wolves demolished it right up until the very end, where things got a little bit of a struggle there, but at the same time, that's usually what's going to happen at the very end of a third-point defense. The respawns are just so strong, you have to win that fight so handily near the end to actually cap it into the end. They did it eventually, but it's very hard to do that right up until the very end from the start.
Yeah, I'm going to be frank. I wasn't impressed by DeToNator's defense. It felt like they were in disarray. It felt, like I said, they were trickling in a lot. They weren't really taking their time. They weren't actually trying to set up for a solid defense, but the few times they did set up for a solid defense, I think there was one where they really properly held, but the rest of the time Flash Wolves were actually winning regardless. So if you're DeToNator, the fact that they bought a lot of time by trickling, maybe that's just the best they can get out of a bad situation for them. Maybe they're just not that comfortable on the defense. And they did eventually force it to overtime for Flash Wolves. So they kind of got away with it, and maybe that's just part of their plan. I mean, maybe they are going to have a really great offense now.
A lot of it did come from that first point, actually. Flash Wolves did take a few pushes to finally actually capture it. And a lot of that just came down to the team composition that DeToNator were running. They were sitting all of them up in the roof in that cafe, making sure they're all completely safe from any dive. We always know that Flash Wolves are going to run some pretty heavy dive. This time, though, they ran diving tanks and a Genji, and then throwing in a Reaper into the mix as well to try and bust down what actually was 3 tanks coming out from DeToNator. So it was an interesting strategy from both sides to actually hold, but DeToNator, I've got to give them some credit. They did do pretty well on that first defense. Sometimes you actually do see it just completely demolished in the first push.
The only thing is you did also see Flash Wolves adapt to it. So, you know, I'll speak about it quickly because we are back out of the gate now, but they failed the first time because the tanks are on the high ground, the Reaper can't get there. Then they just forced the tanks onto the low ground by sitting on the point, making them come to you. So Flash Wolves did figure it out. We'll have to see now how their defense goes because they're pulling out something a little bit different here.
Yeah, it's double builder composition here. You've got the Torbjorn, you've got the Symmetra. This is something that you need to start demolishing through on the first push, because if you don't, suddenly Symmetra's got the shield generator up. Bacon Jack on Torbjorn is going to be throwing armor out on absolutely everyone, and that is going to be a much harder fight to take. They have to start winning it in these first 2 pushes.
And Zonda uncontested on this high ground in the cafe. He's not getting many kills. He's only just barely got the 1, but he's getting so much damage, and now they're able to get the rest of the kills through thanks to Realment. The damage is what's really counting here, and you said it yourself. They had to get it on that first push. DeToNator didn't, and they gave away a ton of ult charge because of how they kept kind of backing out, going in, and there's already now a shield gen up.
And that is just going to be crucial time blown away for DeToNator there, losing Anakin right at the end. The Hanzo is also something we haven't talked about at all. Perhaps they were predicting there was going to be a builder composition. Something that you can play into with that is Hanzo. You can shoot the turrets, shoot Symmetra turrets as well. Scatter Arrow is just going to kill absolutely all of them in a single thing. Oh my lord!
What an angle. Yeah, the shield, it blocks it for the rest of the team, but unfortunately Doglov and Psyhate were ahead of it. They're not going to get really any more kills here. They get Anakin right on the end of it, but his respawn isn't going to be too staggered, but that was just a creative angle. We've seen stuff like that before, but shame on me if you fool me twice.
I mean, the key thing is that it was a single ultimate, which is buying them an entire fight once more. the ults are building up with DeToNator. They haven't actually used any during the fights themselves. They swapped over onto the Roadhog for Delav. If he can actually, you know, use that fisherman experience, go in there, get some hooks, and actually pick someone off. With the Hanzo as well, they do have a fair chance of actually getting the pick, but with the shield gen and the armor, that actually becomes not as possible as you might think. Hanzo headshots aren't going to one-shot a lot of people anymore.
They're having a hard time of it, and they don't have the consistent DPS as something like a soldier. They're really reliant on either a really lucky pick or ultimates. And speaking of ultimates, Zonda opens up with an Anubis on himself, already finds Dodlov, and now they're just getting the rest of them out. They're going to force them way back, maybe even go for a bit of a route here if they can. Yeah, more kills, more trickled respawns, and DeToNator can't find a foothold in this offense.
Well, he needs to be careful here. He doesn't have that much time to actually sit that far forward. Zonda has to actually get back in position. A lot of the strength for Flash Wolves has been where Zonda has been up in the cafe, where he's demanding attention, demanding dive, but they can't get through the Symmetra turrets, the Torbjorn turret, which, by the way, still has Molten Core ready in the bank.
And you said it yourself, demanding dive. DeToNator have not adapted. They have not made any changes. They're still trying to go for the slow and steady approach where they're looking for picks.
I mean, yeah, if Hanzo does get a pick, that's great. But like I said before, shield gen and the armor make that so much harder to do. You basically have to land a headshot into a Roadhog hook to get the one-shots. Flash Wolves, they're just sitting, just ready every single time.
They've even had ultimate advantage. They had it on this one, and they didn't commit. They didn't open with the sound barrier. They didn't open with the Hanzo ultimate, but they haven't really, they haven't used what they've got, and they're losing time now. They're not even going to have ultimate advantage coming to this next one if they're not careful.
So Yoshimaru has to get that Graviton Surge ready now, because DeToNator needs to throw in the combo with the Dragon Strike.
But they're all caught in that Graviton. They're able to stay alive, just barely. Delayed getting picked off just before the whole hog.
Here it comes.
And yeah, they're going to have to try and find something big with it. What are they going to get? They're not really getting much. They've got a few picks out of Flash Wolves, but it's pretty much even Stevens for now. Yoshiharu, though, with a lot of charge, is going to try and get the damage on if he can. He finds his counterpart, but gets taken.
No way.
Charge. Now they're trying to trickle onto this point here. Delay over onto the Tracer to keep it alive. Oh, he does pick Zonda. That could buy them a few crucial seconds, but they need to do things like take out the shield jet. They need to really
look at the
out the
Symmetra's
fortifications. Yeah, the Symmetra is just not dying. It keeps getting
nano boost as well.
Finally through with that Dragon Strike. Delay is going to get picked off though, which means there's not really many people contesting the point. And Flash Wolves are coming back into this one, still with all this armor, still with this shield generator running, and they've almost got the whole team as well. Yeah, Zonda's here to clean up now with that tactical visor available. Very little of it getting blocked as he already got the healer before the Diva was up in his face. He gets Dodlov. Fight the defense matrix, and now finding Yoshiharu. That is going to be a full hold for Flash Wolves, and even when they finally committed, DeToNator could not find it at all.
It looked close, but their one key win condition once those first few pushes weren't actually working was that Graviton into Dragon Strike combo. It got a little bit messed up as well because who was playing the Hanzo? It wasn't Zonda, was it?
It was Anakin.
Anakin, that's right, yeah. So Anakin, he got forced out of position to get a good Dragon Strike in. He was up on the high ground. You generally don't want to shoot the Dragon Strike straight down into a Graviton because half the people can actually get out of it, and you're not going to catch them there. You want to be able to zone off half the point with that ultimate, but he was forced out of position up onto the roof by the Zarya, so wasn't able to get a great combo, and even though they did get a lot of damage out of it, shield gen, armor, too much health.
Exactly. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with holding on to the Dragon Strike just to get a combo out of it. I mean, you do so knowing that you're going to have to fight through the enemy's Graviton first, and what if you lose either the Hanzo or the Zarya in that Graviton? That's really risky, especially at that point where you don't have time to lose another one. I would have much rather, when they had the ultimate advantage, committed. I wish they'd gone in with a sound barrier to even off the health, because we talked about it so much. Flash Wolves were at a huge advantage with how much extra health they were getting from the shield generator and the armor packs. Even the playing field with the sound barrier, then go in for your fight, use your tools, zone with the Dragon Strike if need be, because if you can scatter this deeply entrenched Flash Wolves, you can get the upper hand, right? They're great when they can all be sat in a similar-ish place with their positions very well set up and lure you into a trap. You force them out of that, you break the trap. They can't do that anymore. And I feel like DeToNator, they just didn't really have the guts to go for it. They didn't have the guts to try and use what they had in a way that was different to what they were intending it for. And it cost them. It cost them the whole game.
Another thing as well that just demanded so much attention was Zonda sitting up in the cafe on the high ground on that soldier, constantly getting his ultimate ready to go, and someone had to dive on top of him. We actually saw the team comp swapped up to have less dive, no more Winston, no more Genji, and instead going for a Roadhog instead. He's never going to hit the hook up there. Hanzo was never hitting the headshots, and even if he did, suddenly it doesn't matter because they've got 350 hit points, some of it being armor as well.
Exactly.
So Zonda was completely safe up in the cafe because anyone that had to dive past him, A, wasn't a diving hero, and B, had to go through Tourbillon turrets and Symmetra turrets, and then through a 350 hit point soldier sitting on his biotic field. Very, very hard to deal with when you don't actually commit to it.
Now, to their credit, we have seen Widowmaker deployed to deal with those double-builded defensive compositions because of how crucial that first push is. And actually, they are, to a sniper, just as squishy as any other potential DPS or defense or what have you, right? You can get a headshot on the Symmetra, boom, they're done, they're out of the picture. They took the Hanzo, they wanted a trade-off, right? They went, let's have a slightly less reliable sniper so that we can get that ultimate. But that ultimate, because you need to win on that very first push, by the time you've got the Hanzo ultimate, you've probably already lost the first push, right? And at that point, the Hanzo ultimate's probably not enough to break that first push. So I feel like it was just too risky a thing to pull out in any situation where there could be a double builder defense. And then there was a double builder defense. And then they didn't even change. They doubled down on a guaranteed losing strategy.
I mean, it got close. Let's not beat around the bush about that. They were close to capping the point, but unfortunately, the respawns were a little bit too staggered, and they were able to come back in time to actually contest the point and help out. Because Flash Wolves, they died too slowly, and in particular Zonda on his way back, no one was in there because they were still fighting on the point to contest the cafe. He was able to run straight up the stairs, pop tactical visor, and keep control of the battlefield back down again. So yes, DeToNator did get actually close with their combos and their ults, but at the same time, it just took too long because everyone had too many hit points and were not cleaned up well enough.
And again, their plan was to get something like a Graviton Dragon Strike combo to wipe the whole team. They never wiped the whole team, like you just said, because of the nature of how the respawns came in and the fact that Flash Wolves bought the time, they were able to come back in for the re-defense, I suppose. Yeah, re-defense. It sounds silly when I say it out loud, but I know exactly what it means. I'm just going to hope everyone at home believes in re-defense.
Just say it telepathically.
Yeah, hit us up on the hashtag re-defense.
That's all right. We're coming in to redefend.
Or is it like red e-fence?
Definitely not.
As in like a fence, like a firewall?
No, that's even more wrong. Even more incorrect.
We're just getting really derivative.
You're digging a hole here. Redigging a hole, actually.
I'm digging a hole so that I can lay down some pile stakes for my fence that I'm building, and I'll paint it red.
Do you know who is digging a hole? Towards victory, it's Flash Wolves. That's definitely how in fact, I'm making that saying up right now. You guys can use it.
So you don't have to victory.
You don't have to pay me anything. You can use it whenever you like.
Dig a hole to victory.
But hey, they're 2-0 up, and in fact, looking completely dominating. 3-0 on Lijiang Tower, and first point defense after capturing it all the way to the end on Hollywood. They're just one step away from the easiest 3-0 we've seen in the tournament so far.
I think the only circumstance where victory is underground is in like a nuclear apocalypse.
Maybe that's what's happening.
Dig a hole to victory.
DeToNator?
Oh, for goodness sake.
See, it works. Don't listen to this guy.
Well, all right, yeah, sure. Nuclear warfare coming up next on the stream. So let's just take stock for a moment here because Flash Wolves now 2-0 up. We talked a little bit about what the series may mean, and we will touch on it again later, but we're starting to get this shaped out a little bit in terms of where this team, Flash Wolves, may sit relative to the other very strong-looking team right now being Blank. Could it be fair to say that Blank didn't look as good yesterday against DeToNator as Flash Wolves do today because day one, right? You're actually, whereas Flash Wolves don't have that because it's their home ground. I feel like that is a potential thing that's going on here. So maybe this isn't as representative as we were maybe chalking it up to be. Or maybe it totally is. Maybe Blank have to be quivering in their boots for when they come up against Flash Wolves later on.
If I was Blank, definitely. I'd be totally terrified. Amakin looked like an amateur in that round, right? Like, he just wasn't having any effect so far, especially on the Hanzo. I mean, a lot of that comes down to just how the enemy team composition was lined up. You're not going to be one-shotting anyone, getting any picks with the Hanzo. The ult combo wasn't executed properly simply because he was forced out of position. But at the same time, not nearly having as much effect as he did against Blank. On that Pharah, it looked like he was single-handedly keeping his team in that game. And this time, who's Anakin?
Anakin who?
Exactly.
You're actually completely right. That's another thing that has to be said. Potentially, there's a little bit of a mismatch in expected relative power because maybe Anakin is just not having a stronger performance. Well, I say maybe. No, it's a definite. He is not having a stronger performance yesterday. Sorry. I don't know why. It's hard to say exactly why. It could be a number of reasons. He might just even have a flu. Like, who really knows? But that is definitely a factor coming into this. And that kind of says something good about DeToNator. It says that if they can tap back into that, they can still be a team that maybe takes it to Flash Wolves. I don't know if they can tap into that in this exact next game, but that is something that's still sitting in the back pocket. Like, I don't think they are as weak a team as they're kind of looking right this minute against Flash Wolves. So I'm interested to see what will maybe happen when these two teams meet in future. But there is still a game 3 to get through. It is again going to be DeToNator picking. What do we think we're expecting? Because we've seen a lot of Game 3 Assault.
They did look, I mean, more promising on Control than on Hollywood, for sure. But even then, they were still pretty heavily dismantled against Flash Wolves. So I think we might have an opportunity to see some Control. Maybe Oasis will come out.
Do they take that Pharah favored map?
Exactly, right. And Pharah can be played on every single map of Oasis. That's something they could be looking at. If we look at maybe Assault, like you said, we've seen a lot of Assaults coming out from, especially on map 3. But at the same time, where do you fit Anakin's strength into a lot of these maps? Hanamura, yeah, you can run a Pharah onto that, especially when a lot of teams sometimes run a little bit of a funky composition on the first point on Hanamura. Sometimes they run a Mei, and Pharah can run into that composition pretty handily, especially against double builder as well, or even single builder. Pharah shuts that down straight away.
It absolutely does. It's looking like we're going to be taking just a brief break as we worm our way up. I meant to say warm, and then the word work popped into my head. So we're going with worm. We're going to worm our way up to this Game 3. We'll be right back in just a few moments. And welcome back to the official English broadcast of the Overwatch Pacific Championship. Thank you for sticking with us through that brief break. Should be getting into this third game of this series between Flash Wolves and DeToNator.GOLD any moment now. First two already going in favor of Flash Wolves, and in the nicest way possible, we are expecting the third to fall their way as well, unless things seriously change for DeToNator. So let's kind of touch on that. What do DeToNator need to change? Because we have seen them play very, very effectively, better than they have tonight.
They need to start actually getting in the driver's seat and taking control of some of these games. Every single match, they have been on the back foot. And it's been Flash Wolves deciding how the game goes and down to where DeToNator are actually standing. That is being decided by Flash Wolves right now. And if DeToNator needs to get back into this game, that is what they need to do. They need to start changing that. And I think out of the corner of my eye, I saw it was going to be Temple of Anubis.
It is going to be Temple of Anubis indeed.
So that's one of the ways to do it, right? Because of the way attack and defense actually work on these maps is that your positioning is really mostly decided by you, especially if you do start to run these dive compositions. But we have seen Flash Wolves actually adapt to that themselves. Roadhog, McCree, those are great champions at shutting dive down, and they've shown that they can do that.
The thing I kind of want to touch on here is, though, Flash Wolves, we just saw them in Hollywood completely whole on the first point. On Temple of Anubis, you have a short enough distance from spawn to the first point that they can definitely do a repeat performance of that, and failing that, you then go into having defender's advantage on the second point, where you are extremely heavily favored. So DeToNator really have to change things up if they want to push this one through and get 2 caps, given their performance on Hollywood. Like, normally a lot of this would just sort of go without saying, like, yeah, you got to play well if you want to get, capture both points in Assault. But because they can't have a repeated performance, they can't afford to have a repeated performance of what just happened in Hollywood, and this is exactly the place where they are most likely to have a repeat performance, they really need to shift things up. One thing we did touch on is Anakin. on Pharah.
Looked fantastic yesterday.
Yeah. Why aren't they pulling it out? I mean, maybe there is a reason. Surely there must be a reason, but I want to see them at least try. I mean, maybe you just go ahead and unlock the superstar, see if that is enough to get you through.
They did on Lijiang Tower, on
Briefly.
Gardens. Didn't work, changed it immediately. I mean,
I
maybe
blinked and he had changed off.
maybe they gave up a little bit too easily on the Pharah strategy, but at the same time, in any case, Anakin is not performing like he was yesterday. Now, this is a different team, right? Flash Wolves are not Blank Esports. Maybe it's saying that Flash Wolves are just miles above both teams, but right now, Anakin is not having the same effect, and to the same extent, the rest of the DPS on DeToNator are just not getting the job done. They're just being completely outmatched by Bacon Jack and Yonder. I've got to say, are fantastic players. I hyped them up at the start of the series, and, well, no one's matching them. Flash Wolves are demanding attention being put onto them, but I don't think DeToNator are respecting that enough. They're running compositions that are not getting on top of particularly Bacon Jack and Yonder.
No, not right now. And there's maybe something else at play here that we actually sort of chatted about between us in the break, and this is something, the more I think about it, the more it kind of makes sense. Because we talked about a psychological factor a lot yesterday, and that was day one jitters. That was day one nerves. And we just talked about how Flash Wolves may not have been subject to that yesterday because of the home ground advantage. It was Blank that, words are leaving me, that DeToNator played yesterday. And we talked about Blank maybe having those day one jitters, and we definitely talked a little bit about DeToNator having the day one jitters, but actually if you're DeToNator and you compare the team you played yesterday, who you probably haven't heard as much about compared to Flash Wolves, who you're playing today, it's not day one jitters, but it is still jitters, right? It's jitters of, oh my goodness, I'm playing a very well-known, very good team with a home ground advantage. That's going to get to you. So it could even just be that DeToNator are psyching themselves out here because they aren't playing as well as they were yesterday, and there must be a reason for that.
If they are being psyched out, though, they need to jump out of it now. They're 2 down. They need to win 3 matches in a row if they want to take out this series. And coming into Temple of Anubis, it's the start of that path, but I mean, the only example of assault we've seen is on Hollywood first point. And, well, DeToNator did not show a lot of promise on the attack for that. They didn't even get past the very first point. And if I'm comparing the two, I think the first point of Temple of Anubis is actually a little bit harder to take.
Can certainly be. In any case, it is detonation first on the offensive, and this is exactly what we were just speaking about.
Here we go. This is dive. They've got a Tracer, they've got a Genji. That's exactly what I want to see. It's not a Pharah, but it is saying, look, okay, Bacon Jack has been fantastic. We need to actually deal with him. He's going to be on Torbjorn this time, which, again, I said it on Hollywood. You need to deal with this composition as fast as possible because otherwise he's going to be churning out armor.
Well, they've already managed to pick him off, and actually it's Dottolov somehow getting that. And because they kept the Genji away for so long, and Anakin just kind of wasted their time with it, they're now on top of this point. Jongi has very little support. He may take down his counterpart here, but that's probably not going to be enough. Yeah, he's going to get picked off as well, and Flash Wolves, no one else really near here aside from Zonda. And that's going to be that for DeToNator. They've actually figured it out.
So this is the most important part, right? So they've captured the first point.
The most important pirate.
The most important pirate. So they need to go to the second point with as much of a snowball as possible. No one is near their ultimate right now except for Yoshimaru. Self-destruct, not the biggest effect on the second point.
Bacon Jack swapped.
Yeah, Bacon Jack Sombra. So I'll talk about that in a second. But the snowball is incredibly effective. Actually, Bacon Jack was standing behind him and he just hacked Diva.
Wow, okay.
Didn't actually result in too much, but the fact is, DeToNator did not get enough of a one-sided fight there to move into point B with a snowball. They've lost one of the biggest advantages you can have in capturing point B, so instead it's going to be a big slugfest here.
Oh yeah, and already losing Anakin and Jalave means they're not going to be able to get that. Like you said, they had lost the opportunity for a big snowball. They weren't completely out of the picture just yet, but they weren't even able to get a foothold in that fight. Routed if they're not careful here. Flash Wolves able to establish themselves, and Bacon Jack, despite swapping, is now going to be well up and running with that EMP, going to really harass the flankers here. Good
so many strengths that Sombra can bring. The hacked health packs bring her ultimate up incredibly quickly. Now Flash Wolves are sitting there, and they've actually got the ultimate advantage. And look at the targets on DeToNator. Anyone that gets hacked there is incredibly disabled, bar the healers. Genji and Tracer lose all of their mobility. Diva and Winston, again, lose all of their mobility. So suddenly, Sombra is looking incredibly good, and we haven't even touched on how important that hacked health pack is underneath the bridge.
Absolutely, and that was the most important hold for Flash Wolves as well. Like you said, now with the ultimate advantage, DeToNator on the offense, still going to try and find their way into this one, naturally. Let's see if they can maybe get a pick to start it off because Jongi is getting low, but he's able to safely retreat. And
There's the hack.
The funny thing is Zonda is in behind them as the EMP goes out. Yeah, the hack indeed. Doesn't quite find anyone just yet, and Zonda not really wanting to commit the Dragon Blade if he doesn't have to, but they do force DeToNator back despite that, getting a couple of picks on the back end of that. And that wasn't even kills to secure it, that was just ultimates that forced them back and kills on the route.
Ain't no health pack down there for you to love. That's been hacked, and that is a big strength bringing the Sombra in on defense. Genji and Tracer rely a lot on the health packs. Ana is never going to be able to hit you to heal you, and Lucio's healing just simply isn't enough, so you need to rely on those health packs. Sombra completely denies that from you, and on top of that, all of the advantages I said before, how strong hacking is.
Diva.
Now, DeToNator, they have a lot of ults. Oh, poor Diva. This happens so often. At least there wasn't any teabagging.
I love that this has become a regular thing now. I call it the pet Diva play, where you get them out of the mech and you use them as a pet, especially if you've got a Diva of your own, and you can block the shots from their gut. And they don't die, they can't get their mech back, and then you just kill them to get the maximum effect. And the reason that's actually great is because it bleeds for time, which is super important on these assault maps.
So DeToNator needs to go in now with these 5 ultimates that they do have, because Bacon Jack, no EMP. EMP will shut all of that ultimate advantage down in the next fight. Bacon Jack, he'll get it quickly. They're going in now.
Anakin is powered up, and he's going to get in there, taking out Sinclair to start it off. Looking to get some more as the sound barrier is on top of them. Doesn't get much, and a good trade out there by Yoshiharu to get a lot with the self-destruct, getting the few closing kills on this fight, but it's not a resounding victory just yet. Flash Wolves now with the respawn advantage are going to come back into this. The EMP out to stop DeToNator up for the time being, and Jongi forcing everyone way off the point. Now they're getting the kills through on the defensive, and DeToNator, without a resounding enough wipe, are getting routed once again.
DeToNator needed to clean this up and get out of there, either die or escape, because what just happened is they blew a lot of ultimates for Flash Wolves. They've only got the self-destruct to work with. DeToNator, oh my god, the Diva again. Hi there. There he goes, he's finally dead. But now DeToNator have a slight ultimate advantage. They've got the pulse bomb. That pick alone could be enough to actually get a kill, but right now they have a very limited window to go in with. Because they've got the pulse bomb and the primal surge, that's the primal rage, that's all they've got to work with, but it is more than what Flash Wolves have. If they can get in there, get a clean ult, and just completely wipe them straight away, they can win even with the respawns.
Without even getting the opportunity to game goes down, like already with an advantage here. DeToNator just have to back right on up. They've also made a couple of adaptations here. Namakin on Pharah.
Finally on the magical Pharah, but is it going to be enough? He needs, never mind, he's finally on Sombra now. Now, on attack, Sombra brings a lot of the same things. Able to hack the health pack underneath the bridge, but the fact is, Bacon Jack's already there. He is going to always have it hacked, and you can't out-hack a hacker. So, unfortunately for him, these health packs are already going to be controlled by Bacon Jack, so a huge advantage for Namakin is not going to be there. They've also got the Roadhog now, looking for a few more picks, but...
And again, picked up, they do actually take out Jongi in response this time, so maybe they can find something with this one. Be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, they need to move in here with the cleanest team fight possible, and I feel like they're just going for a bit of a janky team composition here. Relying on a hook from Roadhog, relying on health packs that just can't be hacked, and Namakin is going to find it a lot harder to charge up his ult than Bacon Jack is, so they're not going to get that clean fight that they're going to go for. The best hope they've got is a combination of EMP and self-destruct.
Commit to this one. Dodlove already getting picked off right from the start, though. Not ideal for them, and Zonda still has that Dragon Blade available if he needs to. He's really kept this flank on lockdown, but the Biotic Grenade on him is going to make it a little bit harder for him. They take out Jalaven. Once again, DeToNator looking to get kind of routed here. No wind in their sails as they're forced to back off once again.
And Flash Wolves are just playing so well that they didn't even have to commit any ultimates into that fight. They've now got 6 of them, and with only 1.5 minutes to go, what can DeToNator really go for? All they've got is what I said before. It's the EMP and the Shockwave combo, that, the self-destruct combo. If they can get that, that's a clean fight, will hopefully kill everyone, and also deny the ultimate advantage that Flash Wolves have. You can't use your ult if you're hacked.
Yeah. And speaking of ultimate advantage, they've got all 6 up. They're going to start it off with the EMP. Oh, Namakin, he goes down with the hack, just barely come up, so he's not even going to be there for that one. DeToNator haven't lost much else, and they've still got a couple of ultimates. If they're careful, they can still pull this one out, but they have to get a lot of mileage, but they're not going to get any mileage at all as they get picked off one by one like so many flies. And Flash Wolves now looking to have an almost complete hold here with less than a minute on the clock and still the ultimate advantage.
And Bacon Jack's almost up to his ult now as well. That's such a quickly charging ult that they're once again going to have 6 ultimates, and all they needed was the EMP to clean up that fight. Now with 20 seconds to go, it's the final push for DeToNator, and Flash Wolves, frankly, they can throw everything they want at this fight.
They're going to have to commit everything if they can even get something out of it with that DeToNator getting hacked. Is he going to be able to pull out the Dragon Blade just yet, despite having the Nano Boost already on him? But he's got to pick anyway. It might not even matter. Now he's going to open up with the Dragon Blade to try and secure this defense for his team. Gets Sai-Hate. That's a good way to start it off. And again, DeToNator. They're not getting response kills. They are not getting picks. They are not taking even trades, and they are not going to win this offense. Caps the first point, so they will have that in the back pocket, but they're getting completely wiped time and time again on the second one as the overtime ticks down for what will almost surely be the last time here. DeToNator not looking like the same team as yesterday.
Not at all. And Flash Wolves, they're going to hold that. They now have to actually capture the first point to get at least a draw, but, well, hey, I'm pretty sure they're going to capture both points.
Pretty sure indeed. Well, what can we say about that? I actually have to say props to DeToNator because they pulled out exactly what we thought they wouldn't be able to pull out, which was capping anything, right? After the performance on Hollywood, we were skeptical that they'd even get the first point. They did actually get the first point. The second point is always just harder anyway because of the defender's advantage, and they never did quite get that major team wipe that they needed, but they did keep that first point. They have maybe cleaned up a little bit. They've maybe shaken off a few of the nerves or whatever it was that was plaguing them on Hollywood. Let's see if they can hold it out on the defense now.
The thing is, they capped the first point very quickly, sure, but the fight was even enough that Flash Wolves weren't at an ultimate disadvantage, which is the most important thing in capturing the second point. It's straight after point A, and they were able to hold on the first push and then start gaining an ultimate advantage of their own, and from there it just stayed, especially with Bacon Jack on that Sombra, meant that they constantly had this EMP rolling over and over into every single fight. I think they had it every single fight indeed, and it actually shut down so much of the aggression coming out from DeToNator.
And actually you made quite an interesting point about Bacon Jack's swap onto that Sombra right at the start compared to Anakin's much later swap, in that the health packs were already hacked by Bacon Jack by the time Anakin was on the Sombra, and that included some that were on what is normally the retreat path if you are the attacking side onto that second point. So because of that, Anakin was never going to get as much mileage, he was never going to get as many ultimates, and he had such a limited window of time anyway. There were constant EMPs, like you said, coming out of Bacon Jack, and really, I think that's just shown that you can't afford to be the second Sombra.
Heavy dive coming out of Flash Wolves. The tanks, the DPS, they're going to get right in there. Honestly, if it's going to be a cap on the first push, it's going to happen incredibly quickly.
It absolutely will, and already they're starting to force DeToNator well back from their current positions. No kills coming through just yet. Just as I say it, Caster's Curse, Anakin is the one to go down. Jongi's going to try and keep this offensive going. And they've already got Dodlov as well. Yeah, like you said, it's going to happen very, very quickly. All they lost was Sinclair, and Flash Wolves in complete control of this point in just a few microseconds.
And the big difference there, you've got to look at it from composition as well. They're running a Zenyatta on the offense this time. Sinclair able to throw that Discord out, get the targets down pretty quickly. Sai-Hate is playing Ana. That's harder to get on your mobile flankers to heal them. You're also not going to be able to hit the sleeps on either Genji or Tracer as easily, and it ends up resulting in a very quickly capped first point. And the big difference here is that Flash Wolves captured it with a big advantage in their fight. They've now got ults to work with.
Yeah, let's see if they can get the snowball going, but they've lost Jongi, so it doesn't look like it. They do trade one back, though. They may still have enough to get this, and Bacon Jack with a pulse bomb, if he finds something good, like his counterpart in Delay, then they could be able to get this push through, but they need to make it happen very, very quick because the respawn and defender's advantage will start to come through. Bacon Jack set up on the point, needs to get a good pulse bomb out, needs to look for healers if he can. That's exactly what he's after on Sai-Hate, but he hasn't got him just yet. Still looking for the angle on the pulse bomb as the rest of his team is starting to get forced a little bit back, especially Momo there. Yeah, it looks like Flash Wolves are going to have to go on the retreat here in DeToNator. They do hold out for that first crucial push.
Yeah, importantly though, Flash Wolves did hold on to a lot of their ultimates. They actually didn't throw anything out there, and they also bought themselves time to swap onto Ana, and on out also Roadhog as well. I don't believe self-destruct is a huge asset in the second point push. So going onto the Roadhog, pretty interesting, right? You're going to find those picks through those hooks, especially onto Sombra. Roadhog, as a hero, is someone who doesn't actually care too much if he does get hooked, because your hook is on a 6-second cooldown, and guess how long you're hacked for? Well, it's 8 seconds now, but in any case, Roadhog not caring about being hacked too much. He's going to hook you or he's not, and being hacked does not make a huge difference to that.
Opening it out now with the Dragon Blade, one sleepy Anakin. And he's not really fighting much for it though, Zonda. He gets a few...
Bacon Jack though.
Yeah, Bacon Jack's the one who gets... He got some damage and it looked like he was going to go down there, but actually staying alive is big, and the rest of the team might even be able to come into this as they find Samurai D on the bottom side. Oh, Yoshiharu has a big one on top of the point, and Flash Wolves, they're not going to be able to get a fight out of this one because that was a few crucial ultimate holders, not just half the team. So Flash Wolves will see Zonda going on the retreat, or just straight to the grave, in fact. So there you go.
Of course, as soon as I say, oh, I don't think self-destruct's that great on the second point, I meant on offense. On defense, apparently you can get triple kills with it. So in any case, good hold there by DeToNation. I think, again, that's a combo of the EMP and the self-destruct, which just didn't allow any of Flash Wolves, again, with their mobility to get out of there. Swapping up once more, Zonda now onto the McCree. Bacon Jack on his signature Reaper. They're going for more of a brawling composition here. I wouldn't even be surprised. There it is. Jongi swapping onto that Reinhardt. They're going to walk right up to the point and challenge them.
Bacon Jack as well on that Mei. Yeah, really going for a slow and steady wins the race approach, and that's something I'm quite interested to see here.
I wonder if we're going to see a wall strategy getting up into some sneaky pathways, some Meta Athena style here, but never mind, they're just moving in here, and this is going to cut off half of the entire point with the Mei wall here. This is pretty important because it's going to bring DeToNation onto them.
Yeah, this is nice. They're going to try and draw in the anti-divers of DeToNator.
There it is.
Oh, they pick up Delave. Yeah, the wall is there. They haven't got too many extra picks just yet, and yeah, Delave being out and Anakin as well. Flash Wolves, they're really trying to get set up onto this one as they freeze up that charging in Winston just for a moment. He's still wreaking havoc on the side, and he is just pausing up Flash Wolves. It might be for long enough. Nice wall off of the Sombra. It's going to get them set up on this point with a numbers advantage. Looking to get out Yoshiharu from the mech now, as they do in fact drop him out. Nice headshot. Well, actually, it was just a body shot, but it was nice at any rate. And Flash Wolves looking a little bit more in command, in control. DeToNator getting steadily wiped, and the respawn advantage is going to have to be really, really big here if it's going to come through for them. Oh,
what a headshot.
Yeah,
now,
what a headshot.
The important thing is Flash Wolves have heroes that can look after themselves on the point, that can last a very long time. That's going to offset a little bit of this respawn advantage.
This is going to be it, actually. This is looking like to be a 3-0. They are trying to offset the respawn advantage if they can, and Zonda,
Blizzard.
He's playing back. Yeah, there's the Blizzard. That's the one to secure the point, like you were saying, and Zonda playing way back means that as DeToNator came out of the base to contest, they were just getting headshot after headshot, and that should well be the cap here for Flash Wolves, even as they lose a couple of members, because DeToNator, frankly, are losing more. They might hold. Oh, Anakin, no, the deflect is not enough. Actually, it meant he stepped off the point for a few crucial seconds. That was a bit of a protracted one at the end, but there was a moment there where the Flash Wolves were the ones set up on the point. They were the ones in command, in control, and the respawn advantage was not as big for DeToNator as it was for Flash Wolves when they were on the defense. Good game at Flash Wolves.
Really good at actually adapting to the situation. You're noticing, hey, look, okay, this isn't working. Our dive comp is just not getting in there. It's constantly being shut down. And not to mention, we're just taking too long to actually get these kills, and respawns are just coming back and messing up with ourselves on the point. So let's take a slow and steady approach, go in from the side, and Mei can actually just wall off everyone, take out picks here and there, and with the set of heroes that they had as well, heroes that could look after themselves, Mei can stay on the point forever. You see it so often on last-second defenses, just to delay into overtime a little bit longer. The fact that they had that means it takes so much longer for the respawns to come out for DeToNator to come in and actually kill them, because every little kill counts when you're coming in there with the respawn advantage, but they couldn't get those.
Exactly. And I kind of said something towards the end there that we kind of felt was a bit of a theme of that entire series. There was a point in that last game where Flash Wolves were set up on that second point where DeToNator are meant to have everything in their favor, and they were the ones in command, in control. That was it. That was the common theme. Flash Wolves were constantly in control. They were the ones dictating how DeToNator played, where they had to fight, when they had to fight, and even if DeToNator wanted to do something proactive, Flash Wolves set themselves up such that they could just pull back and then again re-engage on their terms. DeToNator, they just didn't seem to know how to deal with that style of play.
If they want to move into the rest of this tournament with hopes of actually taking a series, They need to start learning two things. One is how to play from the back foot, because they were in that situation this entire series. And even to a point yesterday, there were a lot of times where Blank would actually take control of the game, and then there was nothing that DeToNator could do. They need to learn how to play from the back foot and start getting back into control of the game. And then, other than that, they need to start learning how to actually play proactively. Because quite often, they were waiting for Flash Wolves to make the move, and Flash Wolves were happy to do that. In fact, so often, Flash Wolves were just deciding every single part of this game down to where DeToNator was standing.
And yesterday against Blank, they had a good amount of proactivity. I mean, you don't come off so even against a team like Blank without being able to play proactive. If anything, the thing that Blank are used to is playing against teams who aren't always able to be as proactive against them. So that is something DeToNator can do, and like I said earlier, they just didn't play as well as they did yesterday. It's really hard to say why, but you can guarantee they're going to go away and look at why. They are going to disseminate that series. They're going to pick it apart and figure out exactly what went wrong, exactly why they couldn't tap into whatever magic they had yesterday, even though they did end up taking the loss yesterday as well. So when we talk about the long form of this tournament and how important the support staff for those teams is going to be, this is exactly what we mean, right? This is exactly where that's going to shine through. If DeToNator come back next week in their games and they come back swinging, they come back having learned from the mistakes of this game and also from the mistakes of the series yesterday, because they did lose, there were mistakes to be sure. If they have done that, then they prove that they can still be a strong team throughout the long form of this tournament. Teams like Flash Wolves, teams like, as well actually Blank, who are now sitting 2-0 up as well, they don't need to do that as much, right? They will still go away and analyze this, but they don't do it with something to prove as well. There is much less pressure on them, and they can just kind of take it easy, go through their regular paces of working with your coaches and your analysts.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I want to touch on as well, and just in that matchup and comparing it to yesterday, when DeToNator played Blank, it just looked like their DPS players were completely outclassing Blank.
It really did.
Particularly Anakin. I mean, we're hyping him up so much, but honestly, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the Blank games.
On that Farah, Anakin Skywalker indeed.
He was keeping his team in the game and just bringing everything completely even, making Blank fight as hard as they could. But today, they were not being outclassed at all on Flash Wolves. Flash Wolves, Bacon Jack in particular, was keeping his team completely cool and calm, and he was the one that was actually keeping his team in control the whole time, and they didn't have to worry about, oh look, our DPS players are just getting overrun. The other thing is, Blank won yesterday because of their macro. Because of course, when your DPS players are being outclassed, you need to actually start doing something else. And their macro team play, ult economy, is what won Blank the game. And this time, Flash Wolves had both the ult economy and general strategy and macro advantage, and then also they had the better DPS players in that series. So that is why it just looks so handily won for Flash Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, Zonda was giving me, a summer series of Puto flashbacks. Just, he didn't miss. He really, for the brief moment he was on McCree on Temple of Anubis for that very last push, he got play of the game, right? And it wasn't with an ultimate. It wasn't anything like that. It was just pure mechanics, left clicks, great timings on flashbangs, and knowing exactly where everyone was going to be. He knew who was going to come out of the basin at what time and where they were going to try and go and who they were going to be going after. And he sat back so he could have them on lockdown as they try to come on through. And that speaks to a little bit of that macro on top of that individual skill, because you can have that individual skill, you can be incredibly accurate, you can have good positioning, that comes more into the team play side, and then also knowing everything about where the rest of your team is and how you are trying to play, how the enemy team is going to try and approach you, that's where macro starts to kick in. And like you said, they really had that as a skill. It's starting to look like Flash Wolves Blank is going to be the match of next week, because they do actually meet next week on the Saturday. And that's going to be where we really put these teams through their paces. Blank, who have already been put through their paces a bit, and Flash Wolves, who are still waiting for someone to really give them a run for their money.
Right now, though, if I had to bet any money, I've got to put it towards Flash Wolves.
I absolutely have to agree with you.
If you compare both, because that's what we've got to go off, right? Both of their matches against DeToNator, Flash Wolves just look so much better, and they have everything that Blank have and more.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I've got to pin them as the stronger team.
And like I said, the only way I can feasibly say that Blank and Flash Wolves are incredibly even is if Blank just had day one jitters yesterday and DeToNator had jitters playing against Flash Wolves today for whatever reason. There are plenty of reasons, and that is a feasible explanation, but it's, what's the term? It's Occam's razor. The more far-fetched the explanation is, the less likely it is. It could actually just be Flash Wolves here, DeToNator here, blank here.
Who knows? I mean,
find out more tomorrow.
Exactly.
Tomorrow. Next week.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow. We're not going to be live
sleep
tomorrow.
through the whole week, and I'm going to wake up on Saturday, and it'll be tomorrow.
That's not a good idea. Don't do that.
No, I really shouldn't. I want to actually have a week.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, be awake, live, experience the world.
I mean, we still have more games to go tonight as well. So
we absolutely do. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. That will, of course, be our next thing coming up. We have Hong Kong Attitude, who will be playing off against Sun Sister. And it was yesterday we saw Sun Sister go down to Matchy in, well, what can we say? Matchy won in resounding fashion. Oh, it was more intense than that. Matchy looked like they owned Sun Sister. It looked like Sun Sister had been paid off to take a dive. Like, it was an incredible victory out of Matchy.
Yeah, so they're definitely going to be coming back to prove themselves today. Hong Kong Attitude as well. Their results yesterday, I don't believe, no, they didn't win their series. I think, did they?
Very good question.
Who did they play? You don't know.
I may not know.
They played Fireball and they did
They
win.
did actually, yeah, they played Fireball.
It was a 3-0, so...
I knew that, I was just testing you. But yeah, in any case, that is what those two teams are going to carry on into this series. It's going to be Sun Sister coming off what has to be called a crippling defeat at the hands of Matchy, and Hong Kong Attitude coming in off a victory against Fireball. And now again, those two teams will face off. We'll have a few more points of comparison of where all these teams stack up one against another. But that is a game in the future, and we will meet you there in the future after a quick break. Let us know what you've thought of the matches so far. Hit us up on Twitter at @fullcircle_ES. Let us know your thoughts. Give us your predictions for the next series, and we will see you in a few moments. Don't go anywhere.